You may not notice it at first glance, but Rivian's latest R1 vehicles, the R1T truck and the R1S SUV, have gone through a major transformation. The Gen 2 versions look almost identical to Gen 1 from the outside, but under the skin they are almost entirely re-engineered. This update isn't about flashy changes, it's about making the platform smarter, more efficient, and more scalable for the long haul. This is a catch up with the R1 family and how the recent changes come across and look like shaping Rivian for the future. Let's look at the evident changes. The first generation model offered two battery options, the original 135 kWh large pack and later the unlocked 180 kWh max pack. The second generation introduced a new 92.5 kWh standard pack based on the LFP chemistry. Key systems remained unchanged across both generations, including the 220 kW peak charge rate, the single plate cooling system, and the 400 volt architecture. The Gen 1 model featured 17 ECUs, which was streamlined to just 7 in Gen 2. While Gen 1 was available in dual and quad motor configurations, Gen 2 added a tri-motor option. These updates represent the major drive system changes. Gen 2 also benefits from an upgraded tonneau cover, now significantly quieter and smoother in operation. The enhanced computing power in Gen 2 improves software performance and over-the-air updates. When comparing dual motor variants, the Gen 1 delivered 328 miles of range on the large pack, whereas Gen 2 extends that to 329. The standard pack in Gen 2 offers a reduced range of 270 miles. All numbers as listed at the time of making this video. That's a good snapshot, but the details are where it gets interesting. One of the biggest shifts is the introduction of a new standard trim, powered by an LFP battery pack. It's about 92.5 kilowatt hours and offers up to 270 miles of range in the R1T and around 250 miles in the R1S. Now what's important about LFP is not just cost. It's that it can be charged to 100% every day without degrading quickly. That's huge for people who drive daily or plan to keep the vehicle for years. It also performs better in colder conditions and is more durable overall. So for many drivers, especially in urban environments, this might be the most sensible trim Rivian offers. Remember, charging to 100% also unlocks that extra range that otherwise only sits as an EPA number on the spec sheet. Besides, it also simplifies the battery management for the user. Rivian recently announced the California Dune Edition, which is a limited run trim for the 2025 R1T pickup and R1S SUV inspired by California's desert landscapes and tailored for off-road enthusiasts. It features a unique California dune paint, a neutral earthy tone reminiscent of desert sands, paired with the dark out package, which includes dark badging and trim accents. It offers a two-tone adventure interior combining sandstone and black mountain hues. The cabin includes durable, easy-to-clean flooring materials and sandstone chilevich mats designed to resist sand and water. It's equipped with a tri-motor all-wheel drive system delivering 850 horsepower and 1103 pound-feet of torque, enabling 0 to 60 miles per hour acceleration in 2.9 seconds. It offers an EPA estimated range of 329 miles. It includes the all-terrain package with full-length skid plates, all-terrain tires, a spare tire, and an onboard air compressor. It offers additional mode called the soft sand drive mode, optimized for desert terrains. It comes with dark max tracks, recovery boards and mounts, dark crossbars, and for the R1T, a powered tonneau cover redesigned for easier maintenance and quieter operation. The R1T version is priced at $99,900, while the R1S one is at $105,900. While Rivian has tried to improve the DC charging curve, it's been uphill and not yet at a place Rivian should have been at. There have been some improvements though. Even with Rivian stuck with a 400 volt architecture, they have refined the charging curves, making DC fast charging more consistent and predictable, especially for the new LFP pack. Charging still has been the falling side. They are still struggling to get the entire system right when it comes to DC fast charging and the thermals in particular. Rivian is now trailing brands like Hyundai, Kia and Volvo who have moved to the 800 volt platform and can charge significantly faster under the right conditions. If you keep the climate control on when charging, that will get you 490 of the 500 amps available, with the 10 amps going into keeping the climate control at 70 to 72 degrees. At the cell level itself, it's believed that the Gen 1 large pack charge better than the Gen 2 max pack. The Gen 2 has disappointed on charging, being short on voltage and hampered by the thermal throttling, especially as you see other trucks now go way bigger and better. The next change is a big deal, even if it's invisible to most owners. Rivian completely reworked the vehicle's electrical architecture. The Gen 1 used about 17 separate ECUs scattered across the vehicle. In Gen 2, that's been reduced to just about 7, and they are now organized in a zonal architecture using just 3 main vehicle controllers. This move simplifies wiring, reduces production complexity, and makes software updates and diagnostics much more efficient. It also sets the stage for Rivian's recent partnership with Volkswagen, because this kind of an architecture is exactly what big automakers are looking for when sharing platforms, and that partnership has probably enabled Rivian to survive. Rivian has also added a tri-motor variant, two motors in the rear and one in the front, producing a wild 850 horsepower. But here's the catch, you only get that full performance when the suspension is lowered and the battery is near full charge. It can only be spec'd with the max battery pack, so while it's incredibly capable, it's not always feasible. Honestly, the dual motor standard trim might be the sweet spot for most buyers, as it balances range, efficiency, and cost better than anything else in the lineup. On the thermal side, Rivian added a heat pump which helps manage cabin and battery temperature more efficiently, especially in colder climates. But there's a small trade off. Some owners are noticing increased motor or HVAC noise, especially when it's only mildly cold outside. The battery pack still uses a single plate cooling system, and while it's improved, Rivian still faces challenges under sustained high performance driving where thermal throttling can kick in. Other vehicles I checked that adopted a triple plate design had better results with this, though they found the overheating occurring in the inverters. That's certainly a better trade off as the inverters cool far more easily. This has been a problem with Rivian and it's continued with the Gen 2. If you owned or followed the R1T Gen 1, you probably experienced some dissatisfaction with the tonneau cover. It was loud, prone to failure, and eventually discontinued. In Gen 2, Rivian brought it back, smaller, quieter, and far more reliable. It doesn't span the full width of the bed anymore, but it solves the most common complaints. Some Gen 1 buyers may have an opportunity of a retrofit, and it would be great for them to check for the same with Rivian. Rivian's software is still in a class of its own. The UI is intuitive, the navigation is smart, and the OTA updates are meaningful, not just bug fixes. With the Gen 2's upgraded compute hardware, the platform is now ready for more advanced features like enhanced driver assistance and smarter energy management, and features like adaptive lighting, trip planning with elevation and weather data, and full remote vehicle control that just keeps getting better. The vehicle menu on the top pops out what's a quick control panel that offers controls for the lights, mirrors, windows, the car wash mode, and the pet comfort mode. Besides, you also have access to the gear guard, the charging port door, the frunk, the tailgate, the drive modes, and the suspension settings. Next to it is the Rivian menu with the settings for the steering wheel and the side mirrors, followed by the settings for the garage. Next to it are the notifications. On the other side, you have the buttons for the hotspot that's useful for over-the-air updates, enabling Bluetooth with the external climate displayed alongside. At the bottom is the music and media settings with all the available apps, followed by the interface for selecting the drive modes. The all-purpose snow, tow, all-terrain and soft sand. Additionally, the performance upgrade gets you the sport and the rally modes with a healthy boost in output. Rivian also has the backup and the 360 view camera, which is vastly improved with the enhanced computing power. You then have the general settings where you have the display settings on top, the access control settings like auto locking, child lock control, roomy entry exits that control the seat positions automatically at the time of entry or exit, and the mirror settings, followed by the hood and the tonneau operations. That's followed by the driver assistance with the standard cruise control, lane change and departure warnings, and the highway assist. followed by the units preferences, where you can pick the units of your choice and by your place and location. Software updates and service settings are at the end of that menu. Service menu options for the likes of wipers, wheels and tires, related reminders should be available here. The Bluetooth, Wi-Fi and hotspot options are in the Connect menu. You then have the Apps menu to view the installed apps, followed by the Drivers and Keys option. You will also find the option for the Garage in the Connect menu and the Dock button to arrange your favorite apps. That's followed by some useful mandatory product documentation. For the most part, this UI appears clearly uplifted, highly refined, and sharp. Next to the Rivian menu on top is a very handy option with a set of easy to access shortcuts. These amply describe the underlying functions. The climate control is accessible at the bottom of the screen with a familiar interface by now. The UI seems very well organized, and as with all systems, increasing familiarity will make it more usable with regular driving. The climate control has the auto and fan settings, the zippy option to control the vents, and access to the pet mode, the heated steering, and climate scheduling. Check the route planning and navigation. What matters the most is the actual drive. Starting with the steering, it feels more refined and confident than Gen 1. The response is sharp but not twitchy. There's a precision to the way the front end reacts, especially in the dual and tri-motor setups. In town, the variable steering weight makes tight maneuvers easy, and on the highway, it settles in with a planted, well-weighted feel. The turning radius is surprisingly tight for such a large vehicle, especially in the R1S. Rivian's done a great job turning the steering geometry to make U-turns and parking lot navigation less stressful than you'd expect in a full-size SUV or truck. Braking also has improved in Gen 2. The regenerative braking now feels smoother, especially in standard and high settings. It's strong enough for nearly one pedal driving in most conditions, but still linear when you need to blend into mechanical braking. That transition from regen to friction brake has been refined. It's no longer abrupt or grabby like in some earlier builds. Acceleration is, as always with Rivian, eye-opening. Even the dual motor trims feel quick, especially in sport or conserve mode. The tri-motor, that's next level. You're looking at 0 to 60 in the low 3-second range when the vehicle is in the right conditions. Low suspension, high state of charge. But here's the thing, that kind of performance isn't always available unless you have topped up and dialed in. Still, the instant torque and all-wheel drive grip make every launch feel effortless. Ride comfort is excellent across the board. The air suspension keeps things composed, soaking up bumps without feeling floaty. And with multiple ride heights and drive modes, you can dial in a feel that's either plush or planted. Off-road, the Rivian is still a beast. Approach angles, articulation, and ground clearance are among the best in the segment. Parking is made easier thanks to great visibility, tight turning angles, and Rivian's excellent surround view camera system. The new gen compute platform also helps with smoother auto park maneuvers and quicker response times from the sensors. Noise and vibration are generally well managed, but one thing to note, the Gen 2 R1s can be louder under certain conditions, especially when the heat pump kicks in on a cold day or during hard acceleration when the drivetrain is under load. It's not jarring, but it's worth noting if you're coming from Gen 1. Overall, driving the Rivian Gen 2 feels more polished, more dialed in. It's clear they have listened to feedback and made meaningful tweaks. The result is a vehicle that's still thrilling to drive, but now with more control, more confidence, and a lot more comfort. Most of those things are not going to be noticed driving straight away, or even on a single long road trip. It will take sustained use and experience and some very attentive driving to notice those. So here's the bottom line. Rivian Gen 2 isn't a redesign, it's a refinement. A smarter electrical platform, a new battery strategy, better software, and real progress in production efficiency. It also quietly sets the stage for Rivian's next wave of vehicles, including whatever it builds with Volkswagen. And at the same time, it's still a new company that's working its way up in getting the right build quality. It, however, is truly in a kind of a fix with its battery. The lower voltage and thermal limitations hamper it with DC fast charging. The 210-220 kilowatt peak charging could easily fall to 150 at 50%. That's somewhat unacceptable for a battery that's 130 plus kilowatt hours in its median trim. The standard LFP could be a better proposition. It's true that most users will not feel it in their daily AC charging, but if it's truly an adventure vehicle, it has to be ready to reach distant destinations and charge one after the other getting there. I also thought while going more into vertical integration, the Gen 2 has not yet made up for the Meridian sound system it gave up, or the Samsung cells from the battery it shred from the Gen 1. These are factors that will be felt on the road as Rivian's own substitutes are not yet up to it. And all that is going to disappoint users who are very much paying a premium price. Anyway, it's still an iconic electric vehicle and I honestly feel amazing having been around here to experience it. And I sincerely hope that it makes it big from here. If you'd like to see my 30,000 miles long-term review of my Tesla Model 3, check the link here or in the description. See you in the next one.